eyes off of you. Caught in the way that I stay, there's nothing else to compare. The thought of you leaves me weak.
Venus is the third brightest object in our heaven, a pale, serene jewel that has shed light on the earth since the dawn of our existence. We are similar in size, density, and composition. She is our closest planet and fellow traveler around the sun. Venus was observed by every ancient culture and civilization. Her beauty was worshipped by all of them. Even to this day, through dense cloud cover, Venus peeks back at us, gently inviting us to come closer and perhaps lift her veil. In the Paleolithic Near East, a goddess is worshipped. Figurines of her have the divine ability to regenerate life. Their prehistoric creators endowed them with lush, fertile bodies that express the Great Mother. As such, she presides over all that exists, the heaven, the earth, and the underworld. By the Neolithic Age, her amorphous obesity becomes a crude vessel for childbearing. She travels along the obsidian trade route to the Cyclades, where her provocative sexuality is transformed into elegance and cool femininity. From here, she sets her sights on the Bronze Age. Along the more local grain routes, she becomes worshipped by the Etruscans, the Phoenicians, the Semitic, Akkadian, Sumerian, Assyrian, Babylonian, and that's just Mesopotamia. She is the goddess of love and fertility, war and sexuality. She's equated with the transient morning and evening star. Early observers described her motion in the heavens as a star within a circle. Hathor comes from a time before the Egyptian historical period, from a pre-dynastic cult that venerated fertility and cows. By 4000 BCE, she is one of the most popular deities in Egypt, god of joy, feminine love, and fertility. She was also mistress of the West, welcoming the souls of the dead into the afterlife. She and the chief deity Ra have a simple relationship. She is at once his daughter and his mother. Her center of worship was the Dendera complex in Upper Egypt. By the 4th dynasty, however, she reverts to her previous state as a cow deity, the Holy Heifer. In the Sumerian Uruk period, the many shrines of Inanna along the Tigris and Euphrates were known as the Houses of Heaven, where sacred prostitution was practiced. Inanna herself prowled the streets and taverns in search of extramarital sex and sensual affairs. When the planet Venus wanes as the evening star, Inanna descends into the underworld for a period of melancholy and renewal. In some months' time, she emerges as the morning star, and her search for sexual adventure is refreshed. In the 8th century BCE, the Akkadians had a hard-on for Ishtar. She is the courtesan of the gods. Her holy city was called the Town of Sacred Courtesans. In 575 BCE, King Nebuchadnezzar II constructs the mighty Ishtar Gate, the 8th gate to the inner city of Babylon. But get this part. When Ishtar descends into the underworld, all sexual activity on earth ceases. Astarte, laid as an egg in the Euphrates, incubated by doves, and hatched as an Assyrian goddess. While Inanna and Ishtar are running whorehouses and descending into the underworld, Astarte is picking up fallen stars and using them to consecrate cities. In the Phoenician pantheon, Astarte is the daughter of sky and earth, and sister to the god El. El who, you ask? El. Oh, him. El eventually overthrows his sky father and marries his two sisters, Astarte and Asherah. Astarte bears him two sons, Pathos and Eros, before she leaves him in favor of Baal, the chief deity of the Canaanite pantheon. Her sister Asherah is now the sole pagan consort of the renamed Yahweh, living in the hills of Judea. When monotheism comes, her images and sacred pillars are rejected and destroyed. When this goddess makes landfall in Greece, she completes a pattern of the fabric of the universe. Her conception is immaculate. She was produced when the severed genitalia of Uranos were hurled into the sea. The ocean roiled and foamed around the divine Titan balls, and from the tumult rose Aphrodite, fully formed and surpassing in beauty all gods and striving mortals. She is taken to the shores of Cyprus by fish-tailed sea centaurs, and welcomed by the Horae, who adorn her in the finest raiment before presenting her to Mount Olympus. When Zeus himself fails in a rape attempt against her, he knows that the gods would war over her beauty, and he immediately marries her off to Hephaestus. But she was the goddess of love, beauty, and sexual rapture, so the laboring cripple was not to her liking. She turns instead to the virile Ares, handsome, whole, strong, and brutal. The Venus of ancient Rome was the goddess of gardens, vineyards, and fruitfulness. In those days she was unworshipped. No festivals, no special priests, and no myths of her own. But life was not over for her yet. When the Romans reached across the Ionian Sea and adopted the Greek pantheon, Venus got a makeover. She is attended by the Hours and the Graces, mother to Cupid, in a painstaking marriage to Vulcan, from which she finds relief with the god Mars and various mortals. Yes, it's Aphrodite, right down to the magic girdle. But thanks to Ovid, Venus does get a myth all her own. Turns out the women of Cyprus dared to deny her divinity, and in vengeance, she caused them all to become the first women to prostitute themselves. When each in turn lost her last vestige of shame, she became a pillar. Things were sure looking up for Venus. She gets her own temple. April the 1st becomes the festival of the Veneralia, at which time, while Vestal virgins bathed the statue of Venus, Romans of both genders, every class, married or not, were asked to cherish the traditional sexual moralities known to please the gods and benefit the state. When Greece gave Egypt Cleopatra to worship as Aphrodite, the Caesar of Rome installed Cleopatra's bust in the Temple of Venus. Then he proclaimed his family, the Julii, to be direct descendants of Venus herself. Rome was conflated with Olympus, and apotheosis ran wild. 1600 BCE, Babylonian astronomers call her the Lamenting Star. 600 years later, Mayan astronomers make detailed observations of Venus, leading to highly accurate calendars. 1610, Galileo is the first to look at Venus through a telescope. The planet is featureless, but for her phases. Phases that are only possible if Venus is a globe that orbits the Sun. Kepler successfully predicts the Venus transit of 1631. In 1639, Englishmen Jeremiah Horrocks and William Crabtree are the first to witness a transit of Venus. For the 1761 Venus transit, 176 scientists position themselves all over the world. From St. Petersburg, Mikhail Lomonosov observes a halo of light around Venus. Upon closer examination, he discovers a thick atmosphere. While in Scotland, James Ferguson's observations and sketches emphasized the dryly technical aspects of the event. In 1768, James Cook sails to Tahiti to observe the following year's transit of Venus. To this day, his spot is called Point Venus. In 1882, a Venus transit is photographed. 1886, Giovanni Schiaparelli predicts the very slow rotation of Venus. 1928, spectroscopy and UV wavelengths are applied to Venus. 1961, the Gladstone Observatory and Arecibo dish explore Venus by radar and discover its retrograde rotation. Venus was knocked so hard by a meteor it reversed her spin. Now on Venus, the sun rises in the west and sets in the east. 1961, the Venera 1 spacecraft passes within 100,000 kilometers of Venus. 1962, Mariner 2 comes within 35,000 kilometers and records surface temperatures of 800 degrees Fahrenheit, no water, and no magnetic field. In 1966, Venera 3 becomes the first spacecraft to impact another planet. No data was returned, but it did drop off a mess of medallions bearing the state coat of arms of the Soviet Union. 1967, Venera 4 descends on Venus, discovering it rich in CO2. At an altitude of 25 kilometers, the probe is destroyed by a pressure of 22 atmospheres. 1969, Veneras 5 and 6 parachute toward Venus for 53 and 51 minutes before all instruments aboard were destroyed. In 1970, Venera 7 becomes the first probe to soft land on another planet. She transmits a weak signal for 23 minutes, recording 900-degree temperatures and a pressure of 90 atmospheres. 1972, Venera 8, equipped with a cooling unit, took readings for 50 minutes, confirming the surface light levels suitable for photography. 1973, en route to Mercury, Mariner 10 takes the first ultrafield images of Venus, showing unprecedented detail of her clouds. 1975, Veneras 9 and 10, combination orbiter-landers, within days of each other, return the first images from the surface of Venus. In 1978, Pioneer Venus 1 constructed the first global topographic map of Venus with radar altimetry data. Pioneer Venus 2, the multi-probe, released 4 probes onto Venus. Only one survived, transmitting over an hour of data. Veneras 11 and 12 reach Venus, surviving 95 and 110 minutes. 1982, Veneras 13 and 14 were equipped with color cameras, drilling arms, and fluorescent spectrometers. They had to work fast. They survived for only 127 and 57 minutes, respectively. In 1983, twin orbiters Veneras 15 and 16 jointly conducted the first high-resolution survey of Venus using synthetic aperture radar. 1985, Vegas 1 and 2, en route to the comet Halley, dropped off high-altitude balloons measuring atmospheric dynamics and cloud properties. They traveled a combined 20,000 kilometers. In 1990, en route to Jupiter, Galileo collected measurements of charged particles, dust, and magnetism. Launched aboard the Shuttle Atlantis, Magellan is a radar-scanning orbiter whose 5-year mission mapped 98% of the surface, sending back spectacular images of a new, more detailed Venus. 2006, Venus Express studies the atmospheric and plasma environment of Venus from orbit. 2006 and 7, the Messenger mission to Mercury uses a Venus gravity assist, taking the opportunity for infrared imaging and UV and X-ray spectrometry. In 2010, the Akatsuki mission fails to achieve orbital insertion. It will reattempt it in 2015. The 2012 transit of Venus is the first to be observed from space. And that's our girl, beautiful and deadly, a femme fatale. Had the Romans known she was so ferocious, would they still have named her Venus? Probably.